Passed by the old neighborhood last spring, and I didn't recognize myself and the person who used to live there. That's not a sad thing. That's the whole point. The version of me at 35 was certain about everything and wrong about most of it in ways I couldn't see. He worked too hard for the wrong reasons. He chased the validation of people who weren't watching as closely as he thought. He held his opinions like weapons. He held his wounds like identity. He confused the noise he made with the substance he was building. And he was trying, I wanna say that clearly. He was doing everything he knew with everything he had. I don't regret him. He was necessary. Every version of the self is the cost of the next one. The version of me I left behind was not a failure. The version of me I left behind was the door to where I stand. He made the mistakes I needed. He paid the price for learning. The version of me I left behind made room for who I am, and I am grateful for the man I had to leave. The version of me I left behind. The version of me at 43 was starting to go quieter, starting to trade the certainty for something more like wonder. He was learning that the questions were worth more than the answers, that the people who said I don't know were the ones worth listening to. He was learning to apologize in the real way, not the performed way. Learning that the soft word was not the weak word. And he was becoming someone I could recognize as closer to the person I had always meant to be. Every version costs the previous one and earns the next. And the courage isn't letting go of what you were to become what's needed. The version of me I left behind was not a failure. The version of me I left behind was the door to where I stand. He made the mistakes I needed. He paid the price for learning. The version of me I left behind made room for who I am, and I am grateful for the man I had to leave. The version of me I left behind. I want to say to everyone who is ashamed of who they were, the version you left behind was not the final word. It was the necessary sentence in a paragraph still being written. And the fact that you have left it is the evidence of growth. Don't let the old version testify against the current one. Don't let the past self have a vote in the present. You are not who you were, and that is not a scandal. That is the whole beautiful point of a life that's still becoming. Leave him there, the old version. He served his purpose. He earned you this. Not a failure. The version of me I left behind was the door to where I stand. He made the mistakes I needed. He paid the price for learning. The version of me I left behind made room for who I am, and I am grateful for the man I had to leave. Version of me I left behind. Leave him there. He served his purpose. The version of me I left behind made me who I am. Yeah. Thank you for everything you cost me. The version of me I left behind. Nobody writes songs about the small acts, but the small acts are what the life is actually made of. He gets up before the alarm because the family needs the early. He makes the lunches with the crust cut off the way the youngest likes them. He checks the tires in December without being asked. He replaces the bulb in the hallway the day it goes. He calls his mother on a Sunday, even when he's tired. He listens to the same story like it's the first time. These are not the things that make the highlight reel. These are not the things that earn applause, but these are the things that hold the whole thing together. The small acts of faithfulness that nobody counts but God. The grand gesture is easy. It rises and it passes. The small act done repeatedly is how a life is built. Small acts of faithfulness are the architecture of a life. Small acts of faithfulness are what love looks like in the light. Not the grand occasion, not the once a year declaring. Small acts of faithfulness are the daily, unremarked upon, invisible and necessary, holding everything together. Small acts of faithfulness. She keeps the house more than she should and never makes it anyone's burden. She remembers the appointment that everyone else forgot. She sits with a neighbor who has nobody sitting. She brings the extra portion without making it a thing. She prays the list in the early morning while the house is still sleeping. She carries in the quiet what she never speaks aloud. And the family never knows the weight of what she carries, the way the ship never knows the lighthouse that kept it. The faithfulness of ordinary people in the ordinary days is the most underrated force in the history of the world. Small acts of faithfulness are the architecture of a life. Small acts of faithfulness are what love looks like in the light. Not the grand occasion, not the once-a-year declaring. Small acts of faithfulness are the daily, unremarked upon, invisible and necessary, holding everything together. Small acts of faithfulness. I wanna honor the ones who have never been honored, who have shown up without fanfare for decades without rest. The parent who kept showing up, the teacher who kept believing, the neighbor who kept noticing, the friend who kept returning. These people are the reason that anything good exists in the places where they've lived and the people they have loved. So this song is for the faithful ones, the quiet, daily faithful, who will not stand in the spotlight, but who deserve the whole of it. Small acts of faithfulness are the architecture of a life. Small acts of faithfulness are what love looks like in the light. Not the grand occasion, not the once-a-year declaring. Small acts of faithfulness are the daily, unremarked upon, invisible and necessary, holding everything together. Small acts of faithfulness still showing up day after day. Small acts of faithfulness, that's the whole life. Yeah, that's the whole beautiful life. Small acts of faithfulness. The river doesn't stop for the fallen tree. It finds a way around and through it, and it keeps moving. More than what's in my life, the thing that stopped the forward motion of everything I planned. I have been the blockage and the thing that was blocked. I have been both the river and the stone it runs against. What I've learned from watching water is that it doesn't argue, it doesn't rage against the obstacle. It simply finds the way, not the way it planned originally, but the way that actually exists. And it arrives at the same ocean by a different road. The river doesn't grieve the path it didn't take. It just keeps the moving that the moving asks of it. The river keeps moving through the drought and through the flooding. The river keeps moving around the stone it cannot move. The river doesn't ask if the road is what it wanted. The river keeps moving and it always finds the place it's going to. The river keeps moving. I've known seasons of the drought when the moving was so shallow that I wondered if the river had decided to give up. And I've known the flooding seasons when the moving was too much, when everything I'd built on the bank was swept away at once. But the river was still there through the drought and through the flooding, still pointed at the ocean, still committed to the going. And I have tried to be the river in the seasons of my living, still moving in the dry years, still moving in the overwhelming. Because the river that stops moving becomes something else entirely. And I was made for moving towards something worth arriving at. The river keeps moving through the drought and through the flooding. The river keeps moving around the stone it cannot move. The river doesn't ask if the road is what it wanted. The river keeps moving and it always finds the place it's going to. The river keeps moving. To everyone whose river has run shallow this past season, I wanna say the ocean is still at the end of your road. The dry stretch is not the verdict, the dry stretch is the desert that every river crosses on the way to something deep. Keep moving even slowly, keep moving even barely. A trickle is still a river still finds the sea. And the season always changes, the rain always comes back. And the river that kept moving through the dry is the strongest one, because it learned the narrow channel, it learned the patient passage, it learned that the destination doesn't require the flood, just the faithful daily moving, just the showing up and flowing, just the river being the river whatever season comes. The river keeps moving through the drought and through the flooding. The river keeps moving around the stone it cannot move. The river doesn't ask if the road is what it wanted. The river keeps moving, and it always finds the place it's going to. The river keeps moving, keep moving. The ocean is there. The river keeps moving, yeah. Keep moving, even barely. The river keeps moving. There's an old man in the last pew. Every Sunday morning, he's been there longer than anyone can remember. He comes in before the others, takes his place in the back. He doesn't need the bulletin, he knows every word by heart. His hands are folded in the old way, his eyes are closed before the singing. And when the congregation rises, he rises just a little slower now. I sat beside him once by accident, and I felt something I can't explain, like sitting next to a tree that had been rooted there for 50 years. After the service I asked him how long he'd been coming. He said, since before you were born, son, since before your father too. There is a faithfulness in the showing up that no theology replaces. There is a weight to the long obedience that the new arrival hasn't earned yet. The last pew holds the faithful ones, the ones who came when it was hard. The last pew holds the faithful ones who showed up in the dark. They didn't need the lights and music, they didn't need the program. The last pew holds the faithful ones who built the thing we're standing in by simply showing up. Again and again and again, the last pew. I've been in the shiny buildings with the lighting and the sound system, and I've been in the small ones with the leaking roof and the off-key piano. And the presence I felt deepest was not in the impressive, it was in the room that smelled like decades of the same people praying. It was in the warm spot on the kneeler where 1,000 knees had been before me, in the hymn with the penciled notes of someone's grandmother. in the usher who has been an usher for longer than the pastor's been alive, in the woman who makes the coffee the same way every week. This is the church that no one photographs for the website or the brochure. This is the church that holds the world together, one faithful Sunday at a time. The last pew holds the faithful ones, the ones who came when it was hard. The last pew holds the faithful ones who showed up in the dark. They didn't need the lights and music, they didn't need the program. The last pew holds the faithful ones who built the thing we're standing in by simply showing up. Again and again and again, the last pew. I wanna be the old man in the last pew someday, still coming when my joints ache, still coming when the world has moved on, still showing up, not because the feeling is always there, but because the faithfulness is deeper than the feeling. And I want the young ones to sit beside me someday and feel whatever it is that I felt sitting beside him. The weight of the long obedience, the peace of the practiced faith, the particular quiet of a life given over to something larger than itself. Week after ordinary week, the last pew is where I wanna be found. The last pew holds the faithful ones, the ones who came when it was hard. The last pew holds the faithful ones who showed up in the dark. They didn't need the lights and music, they didn't need the program. The last pew holds the faithful ones who built the thing we're standing in by simply showing up. Again and again and again, the last pew still coming, still faithful. The last pew is where I wanna be, yeah, still showing up. The last pew. There are smells that bypass the thinking and go straight to somewhere you forgot you still carried. It was the rice cooking in the early evening that did it to me, in a city far from home. Someone in the apartment down the hall was cooking, and I stood in the corridor, unable to move, because it wasn't just rice, it was a Sunday in my childhood. It was my mother at the stove, humming something I don't know the name of. It was the particular warmth of a house that held you, the specific safety of being somewhere known. And I stood in that corridor in a city that didn't know me, and I was home for just a moment in the only way that matters. Home is not a place exactly. Home is a collection of sensations that remind you that you once were held. What home smells like is something past explaining. What home smells like lies deeper than the words. It's the particular combination of the people and the cooking. What home smells like is the first love and the safest that most of us will ever know. What home smells like. I went back after years away and walked through every room, smaller than I remembered, every single one. But the smell was still the same under the new paint and the different furniture. Under the years and the changes, the smell held its ground. And I stood in the kitchen doorway like a boy of 8 again, and everything I'd built felt very far away, and very worth it, and very fragile. And I understood what I've been building toward, all the effort and the distance, all the becoming and the striving, was to make a place that smelled like this to someone else. The greatest thing I'll leave is not the work or the achievement. It's the smell of the home I made for the people that I love. What home smells like is something past explaining. What home smells like lies deeper than the words. It's the particular combination of the people and the cooking. What home smells like is the first love and the safest that most of us will ever know. What home smells like. I wanna make a home that smells like safety. I wanna make a home that smells like you can breathe. I want the people who come through my door to feel something shift in the way the corridor smell to a man far from home. I want my children to be somewhere 20 years from now and have something stop them in a hallway. And I want it to be the smell of what I made them, the rice on a Sunday evening, the particular warmth of being known. Because home is what we make with the ordinary and the daily, and the smell of it outlasts everything else we build. Make the home, make the smell, make the place that someone somewhere will stand in a corridor missing 20 years from now. 20 years something past explaining what home smells like. Lives deeper than the words. It's the particular combination of the people and the cooking. What home smells like is the first love and the safest that most of us will ever know. What home smells like, still missing it, still making it. What home smells like is everything. Yeah, make the home, make the smell. What home smells like.